Epilogue. Art in Magic. Art is a form of magic designed as a mediator between this strange, hostile world and us. Pablo Picasso. Drama as Magic by Henning Nelms. Drama, like conjuring, is an art of illusion. A play does not take place on the stage but in the minds of the spectators. What really happens is that a troupe of actors repeats a carefully rehearsed routine before an obviously artificial setting. The audience, however, misinterprets this as a series of exciting events in the lives of the characters. Forcing spectators to interpret what they see and hear in ways which they know are false comes as close to genuine magic as we are likely to get. The everyday illusions of the legitimate stage put all but the best conjuring performances to shame. Even a second-rate play convinces spectators of facts which they know are not true. It can go further and use these imaginary facts to wring real tears from the eyes of the audience. Everyone is aware that a leading lady on Broadway receives a salary which puts her in the upper tax brackets. Nevertheless, this knowledge does not keep audiences from sobbing over her poverty when she impersonates a homeless waif. The magic of drama is infinitely more powerful than the magic of trickery. It is as available to the conjurer as it is to the actor. The only difference is that actors take it for granted, whereas few conjurers are even aware that it exists. Henning Nelms, Showmanship for Magicians, 1969. In the next piece, Ken Weber motivates us to aspire to more than just puzzles or tricks, and to give spectators an extraordinary moment. When we achieve that, we find ourselves in the midst of an artistically pure moment. The Hierarchy of Mystery Entertainment by Ken Weber. From our side of the fence, we do effects. From the spectator's side, our routines fall into one of three broad categories. Number 1, puzzle. Number 2, trick. Number 3, extraordinary moment. While the lines between these categories are exceedingly blurry, most magic performed around the world falls into the first category, puzzles. The spectator intuitively knows that what he has just seen is, to one degree or another, impossible, improbable, or just weird. He can't figure it out, but he assumes that if he knew the secret, he too could pull it off. A trick is a demonstration of perceived skill, and therefore is more impressive than a puzzle. I say perceived skill because the audience doesn't care whether the signed card found its way into your wallet via a beautifully executed one-handed palm or one of the no palming required methods. Either way, you got it in there so you could get credited with possessing a highly specialized and secret skill. Overwhelmingly, professional magicians perform tricks. That's not a pejorative statement. Tricks have the ability to thoroughly and satisfyingly entertain. The pantheon of magic's elite thrill us and their non-magical audiences with tricks. An extraordinary moment leaves no room for explanation. The viewer gasps for air rather than grasp for a method. Skill is not an issue. A perfectly executed Balducci levitation is an extraordinary moment. 4 jokers that change into 4 kings may elicit cries of, "No freaking way!" But it's not an extraordinary moment. It's a terrific trick. A good number of the routines on David Blaine's first couple of TV specials attain extraordinary moment status. He literally rendered speechless many of his spectators. As magicians, we know that few of his effects required more than a moderate level of manual dexterity. Yet again and again, the reactions approached religious ecstasy. I understand that we saw what the video editors wanted us to see. That's not the issue. What we did see was a series of extraordinary reactions. Mentalists, more than magicians, perform extraordinary moments. the particular nature of what they appear to do, delving into the minds of their audiences, engenders an intimacy with the performer that cannot be matched with demonstrations of skill, regardless of how mysterious they may be. Close-up performers have more opportunities to deliver extraordinary moments than stage performers. The physical separation between the stage performer and the audience works against his achieving anything more than tricks. Awesome, wonderful, hugely entertaining perhaps, but stage conjuring will always, with only the rare exception, fall within the trick category. What do you do? If you perform puzzles exceedingly well, you can be the life of the party. You can also make a living behind the counter at a magic shop. People enjoy puzzles. Anagrams, crossword puzzles, brain teasers. They're fun. They're also commonplace and rarely reward the performer with a lasting career. Superb tricks and the occasional extraordinary moment, those should be your goals. Bona fide magic. What if you could perform real magic? You wave your hand and a cork floats up to your fingers. You rub torn pieces of paper together and they become whole again. You put 3 coins in your hand, close your fingers around them, and only 2 coins remain. You reach forward and produce a coin or a card from the air. What if you could really do those things? Would you do them in front of an audience? Why? And if you did choose to work your miracles for an audience, what would your demeanor be? Perhaps that would depend on how difficult any particular feat was. Would your audience become emotionally involved by watching you? Emotions lubricate the entertainment engine. Emotions generate real magic. Stalking the extraordinary moment. The stronger the magic, the less need for showmanship. The typical cups and balls routine involves a cascading series of mini climaxes. Balls appear and vanish and reappear. Here, then there, then back again. All capped with a kicker ending. The best performers of this classic effect use charm and wit, along with their magic, to hold the audience's attention. Compare that with Blaine's presentation of The Raven. A boy out on a barren lot somewhere in Middle America. A coin on his hand is there. David waves his hand over the coin, and the coin is not there. Vanished. The boy stands, transfixed, perplexed. After a long moment, he softly mutters, while still staring at his hand, "Cool." Between the best cups and balls routine and Blaine's Raven, which will be remembered a week later? The spectators at the Magic Castle enjoyed the balls mystifyingly coming and going. That is, the tricks, while that scruffy kid had an extraordinary moment. A coin disappeared from his hand. No props, no moves that he was aware of, not one word of useless patter. Warning: do not take this as invitation to copy Blaine's style. His laconic, half-stone persona probably fits you like a cheap suit on a humid day. I just want to point out that extraordinary moments can be brought forth from props and effects you already own. It's you who makes the moment trivial. It's you who can make the moment extraordinary. Magic for magicians versus magic for everyone else. When you read a magic book or magazine, if the description of the effect goes on for more than a couple of sentences, it's probably best done for other magicians. Lay people want direct plots. Anything else is magical masturbation, done because it makes you feel good, and no one else. What do people remember? It's easy to find out. Just ask someone who recently saw a magician or mentalist to tell you what they saw. You'll hear responses similar to these. This guy put a nickel and dime in my hand, and when I opened my hand, the dime disappeared. He had this girl look at a word in a book, and he told her the word she was thinking about. I picked a card, and he told me what it was. It jumped into his pocket. He tore it up and put it back together. Siegfried put Roy in a box and covered it for a second, and then Roy was gone and a tiger was there. He floated. Take a look at a magic book or magazine and see how effects could be described that succinctly. Typically, you see card tricks that involve red cards from blue back decks, counting weak climaxes, and convoluted plots that force the audience to follow the action closely. That's magic for us and our buddies. It won't get you repeat gigs. Consider this excerpt from an interview with David Blaine that appeared in Newsday, the Long Island, New York newspaper, on November 7th, 2002. Reporter David Behrens wrote the story, and the interview took place in Blaine's New York City apartment. Blaine produces a fresh, unopened deck of cards. When the deck is thoroughly shuffled, he fans the cards and asks one of his visitors, "Think of a card." He places the deck on the arm of a chair and he will not touch the deck again. The visitor is instructed to pick up the deck, hold it in his left hand, and announce which card selected. "The 3 of hearts," the visitor says. "Now cut the deck somewhere in the middle," Blaine says. The deck is cut and the top half of the card set aside. "That's your card," Blaine says, indicating the top card on the lower half of the deck. The visitors are silent, astonished. The card, naturally, is the 3 of hearts. Now, first fight the urge to analyze the how of the effect. Newspaper reporters are no better than others at accurately remembering all the details of a trick, so this may not be exactly what transpired. The important issue here is that, as in most of Blaine's magic, overt show business never makes an appearance, and the plot, think of a card, cut the cards, that's your card, could not be more to the point. The spectators had an extraordinary moment. They sat, silent, astonished. The stronger the magic, the less need for showmanship. The corollary, naturally, must be that weaker magic requires more help from the performer, and that's where lack of natural talent rears its ugly head. If you're not an extroverted or dramatic person in real life, you especially need to raise your showmanship level for your less powerful effects. You'll learn how later on. Most performed magic is weak, and most magic sold in magic shops or written about in the magic periodicals is best performed only for others interested in the art. The best performed magic and mentalism have always been, and always will be, direct, immediately understandable, and compelling enough to be recalled days later. How much of your show fits that description? The trivialization of magic. Routines tumble down the previously mentioned hierarchy. Extraordinary moments become tricks, and tricks become puzzles, because of the attitude of the performer. When he treats a trick or any magical moment as easy, commonplace, or anything other than special, he dulls the impact of that routine. A trivial stunt by definition cannot be special, yet we see this attitude every day in magic. A specific example. On the website for L&L Publishing, I came across a video clip from one of the most respected performers and teachers in magic, Michael Amar. The website blurb said, "Michael Amar does the impossible as he performs the floating lifesaver in this clip from Easy to Master Thread Miracles, Volume 3. Here's what we see. Michael, standing in front of the usual L&L audience of excessively enthusiastic and good-looking young adults, starts by saying, when I was growing up, my favorite candy was a lifesaver. And I used to eat these little things and think, why are these lifesavers? I mean, 'cause as a kid, I'm just like, well, these must, save people's lives. and I didn't realize it was like this little thing that you would throw overboard and everything. But lifesavers to me always represented this really amazing possibility, so I thought I'd do something with a lifesaver. Now let's see. I'm going to see if I can't get it trained here. Let's see. And he whistles at the lifesaver as if it were a cute pet, and sure enough, it moves, then floats around in front of him, and finally it floats all the way up into his mouth. After the candy floats up to his mouth, he laughs along with the spectators and says, "Isn't that neat?" Now, lest you misunderstand my comments, this is a brilliant and baffling effect, and my guess is that Michael does not perform in this manner for paid gigs. The candy truly floats around in wonderfully mysterious ways. But what's with the patter? It's not especially funny. It doesn't tell the audience anything fascinating or clever or interesting. Instead, it almost mocks the magic itself by momentarily shifting the focus to the young Michael and his sweet tooth and his questions about candy. Then the hackneyed ploy of whistling at an object before it moves, which may play fine at children's shows, but serves little purpose when presented to adults. But lifesavers to me always represented this really amazing possibility. So I thought I'd do something with a lifesaver. Why did they represent an amazing possibility? It's a non sequitur that is suddenly thrown into the patter. So I thought I'd do something with a lifesaver. Do something? It sounds so casual. Not mysterious, not funny, not dramatic. It's the type of remark that might be said by an interior decorator. "Let's please do something with that window treatment." But it's not terribly appropriate for a miracle worker. Again, this trick is a piece of strong magic. It's the presentation that squelches a potential extraordinary moment into a very nice trick. Think about every word you say. Analyze your every action. This is not a quick process. I watched that brief clip many times before I began to appreciate its strengths and the potential areas for improvement. You want your presentational skills to equal or exceed magic technique. Both goals require time, dedication, and effort. All magic, at its core, is a puzzle. Presentation only, is the lever that elevates a puzzle to a trick or a trick to an extraordinary moment. Raise your level. Ken Weber, Maximum Entertainment, 2003. Lest you think a conversation about art in magic must be lofty and abstract, I have opted to include a rather specific, practical piece by Tommy Wonder. Here he demonstrates a technique we can use to heighten the drama of a presentation and move it in closer proximity to the realm of art. Secondhand Drama, Tommy Wonder with Stephen Minch. Suppose that one day I told you a story of how I drove my car along the streets of Amsterdam, traveling along the canals. A dog suddenly crosses the road in front of me. I try to miss it. My car slips, hits a tree, and dives into the canal. After a harrowing struggle, I manage to get out of the car. Then, luckily, a small boat comes along, and I am saved. If I tell you this story in a lively and captivating way, it can be considered entertaining. I entrance and interest you. You are able to imagine yourself in my place, experiencing what I experienced. Fine. Although my telling you this story can be interesting, I could make you experience it in a much more dramatic way. To do that, I would take you to Amsterdam, where we would walk along the canals. You see a dog suddenly cross the street. A car tries to avoid the dog but slips, hits a tree, and plunges into the canal. After a time, the driver escapes from the car. swims a while, and eventually is picked up by a boat. Because you see this happen, it obviously makes a much stronger impression on you. The experience is far deeper than that felt while hearing me merely recount the incident. That this entire scenario was planned and arranged by me for your entertainment, and that it was performed by a stuntman and a trained dog, doesn't detract from this and is beside the point. But what if I want to make this experience even deeper and more dramatic for you? To do this, I handle the story in a much different manner. This time, I take you in my car for a ride through Amsterdam. Before we start this ride, I make some secret arrangements. Trained dog and man in boat are ready. Measures have been taken to assume that everything is safe and nothing can go wrong. Now, here we go. You are sitting next to me in the car, driving happily along the canals. Suddenly, there's a dog. Well, you know the rest. What you experience this time, I'm sure, will make such an impact on you that I doubt you'll ever forget it. The difference in the impact of the first example and this last one is enormous. My telling a story is nothing compared with your actually experiencing our hitting the tree, going into the water, and getting soaked. This is the ride of a lifetime. What am I trying to say here? This difference in impact is important. You can see the difference in the strengths of various forms of drama. The first example is one of secondhand drama, where you are told a story, but it isn't happening at the time. This has a rather weak impact. It is something that can be easily forgotten. Still, it has plot, emotion, conflict, suspense, and other qualities. Drama like that in the second example, where you personally witness the happening, that is, first-hand drama, has a much greater impact. This is something that you will not so easily forget. The plot, emotion, conflict, and suspense are the same. Yet, although you are only a witness, you are not actually involved, the event will move and touch you much more than the simple telling of the incident can. The third example is also a form of drama. It is first-hand, like the second example, but now you are no longer a spectator. You are involved. Again, the plot, emotion, and suspense are the same, but the impact is devastating, and you will never forget how you were a part of the event. The example of a car accident is extreme. I didn't use this accident because I especially enjoy perilous drama, but because it forcefully illustrates the underlying idea I wish us to examine. How this applies to magic will be obvious. The first two types of drama are easy to achieve in a stage performance. The third type would be far more difficult to accomplish on stage. In a close-up environment, however, all three types can be contrived, although the third type, where the spectator is no longer a passive witness, but personally involved, will still be the most difficult one to realize. For instance, let's say you do a card trick during which you tell the audience about a gambler who once challenged you to find the aces after he had shuffled them into the deck. As you relate the story, you recreate your feat with the cards. This can be a good piece of drama, but no matter how well it is done, the impact is limited. It is secondhand drama, like the retelling of the car accident. With this in mind, consider the lighter to matchbox effect. The lighter doesn't work, and you go on to solve the problem. If it is well acted, the spectators feel that they are witnessing your confrontation of an unexpected problem, and they watch, genuinely involved, as you surmount it. This, like our second example with the car, is first-hand drama. Here is not just a story told about something, it really happens at that very moment. If performed with the same believability as your recounting of the story of the gambler, it will have greater dramatic potential, simply because it is a stronger form of drama and isn't so easily forgotten. Tricks in which the wrong card is chosen or the magician seems unable to find the selection are frequently performed, and if played well are examples of first-hand drama. There are, however, other paths to first-hand drama than that in which the trick seems to go awry. Consider the third type of presentation, that illustrated by our taking the spectator along as the car plunges into the river. This type of drama is harder to achieve, but with close-up magic it is definitely possible. If, for example, you could press someone into doing something without the audience recognizing that you are managing his actions, you would have the sort of immediate drama for which we are striving. Let's say this person is into shuffling the aces into the deck and slamming it in front of you with the demand that you find them now. You can imagine the impact it will create if you then find the aces. The audience would never forget it. Things like this can be set up to happen. It is difficult, but nevertheless attainable. Such seemingly impromptu happenings are the strongest form of drama possible. For that audience, you very well might be an instant star, the best magician they'll ever see. The idea is obvious. Although secondhand drama is fine and can be effective, ask yourself if it is possible to upgrade the drama. Try if you can to turn it into first-hand drama. Don't just show things. Let them happen. Their impact will be much stronger. Sometimes not much is needed to upgrade the presentation of a trick. And if you are ever able to raise a presentation to the third type of drama, the results are extraordinary. Although going for the highest impact possible may seem logical, I don't believe you should always go for the third type of drama, where the spectator becomes a fully active player. If all your tricks were of that nature, the impact would be so high you could easily wear out the audience. High-impact drama has so profound an effect, it is hard to handle a lot of it during the short time consumed by a magic performance. Audiences are limited in what they can endure, so such strong stuff should be used with moderation. After a high-impact trick, spectators should be given enough time to catch their breath before they are hit hard again. Still, it is desirable that your magic have some first-hand drama, rather than all second-hand drama, which is the only presentational style seen in so many magicians' acts. Most magic performances could use some strong upgrading, for watching magic without real involvement becomes boring very quickly. Tommy Wonder, The Books of Wonder, 1996. As we near the end of our audio journey, we revisit the sage words of Nevil Maskelyne, who makes one of the earliest and best cases for magic as an art. It is because of this essay that I have called this final chapter Art in Magic, rather than Art of Magic. As you will soon see, there is a significant difference. The art of magic speaks to the effect of magic on people. The art in magic speaks to the effect of the magician on magic. The Real Secrets of Magic by Nevil Maskelyne. As in painting, so also in magic. To produce a magical effect of original conception is a work of high art. It imitates the exercise of magical powers by means and in a manner conceived by the artist who produced it. To reproduce a magical effect exactly as already conceived and executed by an artist in magic is false art. It merely imitates the original imitation and, in actual value, is just as worthless as a painting copied from another painting. Any weakling may be taught how to do that kind of thing, and, having learned his lesson, may earn an income equivalent to the value of a weakling's work. Yet, in spite of the truth of the foregoing statements, many of those who practice magic, either as a means of livelihood or as an intellectual recreation, appear to be entirely ignorant of the very existence of facts such as those we have reviewed. In all probability, those men would feel highly offended were any doubt cast upon their claim to be regarded as artists. Yet, in all they do, they prove themselves to be mere mechanics. They can do just what somebody else has already done, and they can do nothing more. Such men are not artists. They cannot be, since in all their works the only kind of art displayed is the false art, which is an imitation of real art. The class of man just indicated represents a type that must be very familiar to all. The methods adopted by such men are of common knowledge. Suppose, for instance, Mr. Artist produces a novel and successful effect. No sooner has he done so than Mr. Copyist becomes on the alert, and forthwith proceeds to haunt the place wherein Mr. Artist's performances are given. By means of persistent observation, aided perhaps by accident, by means of purchase from some other imitator, or, it may be, by means of bribery and corruption, Mr. Copyist eventually acquires the knowledge and equipment requisite for the reproduction of the novel effect. That end having been attained, one might think that Mr. Copyist would need to gain nothing more at Mr. Artist's expense. Generally, however, that is far from being the case. Although he has become possessed of the technical requirements connected with the effect he seeks to reproduce, Mr. Copyist even then is not content to take off his coat and do a little meritorious work. Having got what he wanted in order to reproduce the effect, he might surely be expected to infuse some spice of originality into his reproduction. But no, he will not trouble himself even to that slight extent. He does not mind expending his time in gathering the crumbs that fall from another's table, but he has a rooted objection to expending energy in making his own bread. So he continues to attend Mr. Artist's performances until, in the course of time, he has learned by heart every word Mr. Artist says, every inflection of Mr. Artist's voice, and every movement and gesture Mr. Artist makes. Then, and then only, is Mr. Copyist prepared to set to work on his own account. And when his reproduction is exhibited, what is it? Generally speaking, it is but a pale reflection of the original work of art. At the best, it is merely slavish imitation, and, as such, has no artistic value. On several occasions we have made an experiment which is always interesting. That experiment has been tried upon copyists, clinging to the skirts of various arts, including magic. It consists in saying to Mr. Copyist, at the conclusion of his performance, "I had only to close my eyes, and I could almost have believed it was Mr. Artist who was performing." Thereupon, Mr. Copyist has, invariably, assumed an expression of smug satisfaction, and has given thanks for the great compliment paid him. If he could only have realized what was passing in the mind of the person to whom his thanks were addressed. But there, his mental caliber, of course, forbids any such exercise of intelligence. Yet, one cannot help coveting the blissful ignorant and the sublime impudence which enable such a man to pose as an artist. The possession of an intellect so obtuse and a hide so pachydermatous must confer upon the possessor a degree of self-satisfaction unknown to men of real ability. Nevil Maskelyne, Our Magic, 1911. Nevil Maskelyne. Nevil Maskelyne, 1863 to 1924, was the son of famous magician John Nevil Maskelyne and the father of Jasper Maskelyne. Like his father before him, and his son after him, Nevil performed his illusions at Egyptian Hall in London. In addition to being a renowned magician, Nevil was an early pioneer of radio communication. The last essay of this audiobook exemplifies what our magic must strive for: a clear vision, aspirations to deeply engage and mystify our audience, and a personal point of view. Meaning and Vision by Derren Brown. What is the magical experience? Number 1. Astonishment is not an emotion that's created. It's an existing state that's revealed. Number 2. The experience of astonishment is the experience of a clear, primal state of mind that they associate with a child's state of mind. And number 3. At that moment of trying to box the unboxable, your worldview breaks up. The boxes are gone. And what's left? Simply what was always there: your natural state of mind. That's the moment of astonishment. Those lines are taken from Paul Harris's introduction to his The Art of Astonishment, and give a clear and very interesting model of understanding what the experience of magic might be. However, this idea that astonishment is also our primal state of mind seemed a little too convenient for us as magicians. It is dangerously flattering to ourselves to believe that we are putting people in touch with something primal and perfect through the very act of performing magic. The problem is the temptation to theorize and unify a practice that is in its nature entirely pragmatic and opportunistic. One should certainly have a clear sense of what one wishes to achieve with one's magic, but at the same time, when one is dealing with a craft, and occasionally an art, that is in itself a beautiful demonstration of how misleading our models of the world can be. One must be wary of objectifying that vision and mistaking it for reality. As far as any statements can be made, I think that the situation is as follows. The experience of magic is not universal. It is a direct result of the communications given by the individual performer. These communications may be intentional or otherwise. For example, if an irritating magician insists on performing for a spectator and the latter remains annoyed, then that spectator's experience of magic will be annoyance, not a wonderful link to a primal, childlike state of mind. The experience of magic may be no more than the possibly quite mundane response of an individual spectator at any one time, for the magic does not happen anywhere other than in her perceptions at a particular moment. To insist that magic is somehow important and inherently cathartic when one is not making it so is nonsense. Magic is not inherently anything. It is what you sell it as. Failure to understand this can lead only to misguided pretension on the one hand, as well as trivializing our art on the other. Any magician who says what magic does in a grand way is expressing his vision, which he hopefully communicates in his performance. His words have the same weight as those of the performer that insists that it is a vehicle for having a bit of fun, and no more. Each is expressing his vision, and each, if he performs true to his vision, will make it true. Neither is correct, and both are. This is due to the unique nature of magic, in that it only happens in the minds of a spectator. If that spectator does not perceive the magic, it does not happen. Even if you are playing the part of that spectator, when you practice alone, that role has been filled. Accepting this, it is dangerous to insist that magic has any inherent qualities. In understanding this, the issue then becomes one of creating an experience for the audience. Imagine for just a second that you were to put this book down in order to pour yourself a steaming cup of Earl Grey, or chat to one of your delightful friends, only to find this handsome volume gone when you turn back to retrieve it. Your experience would be one of bewilderment, rapidly followed by backtracking through your remembered experience to find out what you must have done to misplace the book. You would doubtless be very confused, and would start hunting for it around the place where you sat, You would move position to gain a more comprehensive perspective on a confounding situation. This experience is not particularly childlike, neither is it magical. It is one of bewilderment and of rapid rationalizing to find possible lacunae, a blank gap or missing part, in your understanding. You are eager to grasp a solution and to relieve your mind by assigning meaning to the experience. If magic were to be performed without any meaning attached to it, I imagine the end result would be something similar. However, the moment a spectator realizes his role as witness/audience to a performance by a magician, much meaning has already been ascribed to the situation. The spectator knows that he is not to take it too seriously, and that he is being fooled for the purposes of his entertainment. The common experiences we have of things seemingly disappearing and similar confusions are probably close to what magic would feel like if we were offered no clues, context, or meaning. In such a situation, we see that we would run through a rapid internal reality check that would continue until a solution was offered, or we simply gave up worrying and dismissed the confusion with a laugh. The difference between this sort of bewilderment and the experience of astonishment that magic should produce in one way or another is the fact that in the latter case, the bewilderment is given a set of references and a context in which it operates, so that the spectator is given the option of finding the bewilderment satisfying and seeing value in it. The more resonant the magic, the more satisfying it will be, unless the intention of the magician is purposefully to dissatisfy for deeper aesthetic reasons. Thus magic has no pure form. In a pure form, it is merely confusion, not magic at all. It becomes magic when the performer gives it shape in the mind of his audience. He may believe it to be about achieving a childlike state of wonder, or some such notion, but this is just his choice of shape, and if he does not deliver the goods in performance, then he is deluding himself. Magic, therefore, is only inherently about how the performer decides to frame it. This is a behavioral issue regarding the performer, not an identity issue regarding the material. How you decide to frame your magic, whether or not you find yourself responding to the frame I give it, will be irrelevant, for all the same reasons, unless you can effectively communicate that framing to your audience. If you don't communicate it, it doesn't exist, and you're not doing what you think you're doing. Ascribing meaning in the place of confusion. Determining the vision. The first task of the effective performer is to decide upon what meaning his magic should have, and then, to be true to this vision, he should delude himself into believing that vision to be absolutely true. If that vision is one of magic as a light-hearted blend of comedy and puzzling tricks, then so be it. If it is one of a dark and disturbing art form, then so be that too. There can be no shortcut to achieving an artistic vision of any sort, unless one borrows from another artist. This, of course, does not achieve the goal of arriving at a vision that will define the artist, although it may allow him to adopt a style and feel second best. From my own experience, the growing magician starts off pretty much without any discernible style, delighting in packet tricks and bad clothing. If he comes to adopt a style, it is of a generic, fast-talking, vaguely humiliating and bouncy magic man. The magician, when asked to perform a trick, will shift from being a perfectly pleasant, sweet young man into Mr. Light Entertainment, developing suddenly exaggerated body movements and, in England at least, traces of a regional accent that is not his own. He will say words that are obviously lines. People will recognize his patter as being such, and any connection to the person they knew and liked only moments before will be severed the moment the card box is opened. Any experience of real magic is lost before the game starts. Then, through a series of events that radically alter his approach to performance, as well as through time and consideration, that magician will hopefully come to settle into his performance. Instead of communicating tension and weirdness, he will resonate complete congruity with his performing persona. The material he performs will reflect that persona, and the congruity will expand further. As that happens, the audience will sense real professionalism and also feel utterly confident in his hands. I am describing an ideal path for the growing performer, but we are all aware of the almost tangible difference between a comfortable professional performance and an uncomfortable amateurish one. The former will control a room. The latter will suck all energy from it like an extractor fan. The hobbyist performing for his local club is not expected to fill the clubhouse with a well-honed presence. But any magician working professionally who should know better has no business insulting an audience, especially one trying to eat, with substandard performance. Few things annoy me more than paying to watch bad, self-indulgent performance, let alone having it thrust upon me while I am enjoying a meal with my few remaining friends. Clearly, we all have to start somewhere, which is why I emphasize that I am criticizing those performers who should know better. We watch a first-time stand-up comedian die at the open mic and cringe in embarrassment and hope that he will go away and change his material. But we don't resent him for it, as long as he refrains from blaming the audience for not being responsive. But when a more established comedian who is working the circuit stands before us and is blatantly unfunny from beginning to end, we have reason to feel insulted. If a reasonably seasoned performer cannot see that his audiences are not responding, then he must rethink his material, not force it on further audiences. A performer may be so enamored with himself that he is blind to audience apathy or irritation, but that is not a pleasant thing to watch. Jesus, let it go. Take a chill pill. The magician who does control a room and richly satisfies his audience will have a vision of what he feels his magic to be. That vision will have arisen out of years of defining his performance and the development of a style. The vision will propel the magic and give it meaning, while the style is the natural expression of that vision. If the magician comes to feel that magic is about the creation of a particular feeling, then everything in his being will point towards and encourage that feeling. And the vision will be just that. The magician will have in his mind a clear image of idealized magic performance, and will strive to achieve that. He will know when he has failed and sold himself short, and the humiliation stings for a long time. But he will also know when he has touched that ideal and created exactly what he feels magic should be. My own vision, and the one with which this book deals, is one of magic that feels real and ultimately serious, though not necessarily solemn. In close-up quarters it suggests a magic which is charming and gentle in tone, but devastating in content. On stage or television I can afford to be more openly disturbing, but when I am invited into the space of a few spectators, I must respect that. It is a vision of magic that enthralls and emotionally touches, rather than just entertains, although it also encompasses a variety of light-hearted amusements too, for I am paid to entertain. It is also very much based around character or ego issues. It is not a social vision, or one that contains a message that pertains to anything other than the performance. The message of the performance is the performance itself. It is about a commingling of character and material that is deeply affecting, and which will transport the spectators for a while to a magical plane through deft, emotional involvement. I don't mind if they know it's all an illusion, but I would like them to feel that that is not the point. And finally, I would like them to attach all those feelings back to me as a performer. so that I create a certain level of intrigue about myself in their eyes, and to walk away from the performance looking at the world with a wider perspective. In my mind, these things form a picture, a literal vision, and I can do everything to ensure that the reality of the situation gets as close to that picture as possible. Few will share my vision exactly as I see it, but I absolutely have to believe that it is the way of performing magic, while making sure that it does indeed provide the response I expect it to. It is pointless presuming that the floating ring effect that I have described is better just because it conforms to my principles. It must then get the response I wish it to, otherwise I am deluding myself. The important point is not so much the individual aspirations of the performer, but whether they make for better magic, and whether he can congruently perform in a way that attains them. As for how one arrives at such an imaginary picture of how magic performance should be, the process will begin, usually, negatively. One normally decides first what one does not wish to do. I realized early on that I would not feel comfortable performing rope magic. Neither would I be entirely happy with coins. And never would I be a home to Mr. and Mrs. Spongeball. The first task is to question what the reasons for one's preferences may then be. If not this material or these props, then what? And why? And as one begins to form a sense of one's preferred material, a feeling for what one would most like to achieve in performance starts to form. Another question here would be, what exactly do I want my audience to feel has occurred? And what do I want them to think of me? For magicians who do not keep this question in mind as they design and perform material, no clear answers will develop. The magician will just do the trick as best as he can and then move to another one. If pressed, he will say that the audience should feel amazed and amused by his skill. This brings us back to the analogy of the violin cadenza in the symphony. Appreciation of skill can enhance the magic, if it happens within a certain context. Or returning to our hero metaphor, we need to appreciate as an audience that the hero is equipped with certain skills that make him intriguing in some way. If the audience understands that we have the deftness of response, enviable physical dexterity, and ability psychologically to manipulate that they enjoy being part of, then our character is defined as someone worth watching and rooting for. If we then take the audience to a point of crisis, where in order to make the shimmering point of magic occur, we must invest effort into resolving a conflict, then their understanding of our intriguing skills will only enhance the drama. The opposite view of this is to say that such things as card flourishes have no place in magic, for displays of skill are not compatible with magic being real and independent of the performer's technique. But this is a flawed argument. To pretend that we are not utilizing skill is daft and patronizing, and to display it to just the right degree to define our characters, or in another way, to gain credibility early on, makes for more resonant relations with the audience. The magician who does ask himself the question of exactly what response does he wish his performance to elicit from the group, and continues to refine his answers, will perform in a way that is born from an appreciation of the spectator's experience of an art form, in that he realizes that magic is all about the experience of the spectator, and is as far removed from technique and sleight of hand as music is from fingering notation on a score. He will be set in the direction of efficiently creating powerful magic if he has the skills and sensitivities of a composer of magic to back up his intent. In forming the vision, it is also vital to ensure that it develops from the right perspective. As you think about your performance and allow that vision to form, it is important to note that the mental image is of you performing for a group in whatever surroundings. If when you think of performance, you see what you would see out of your own eyes, then you are seeing what you do from the wrong perspective. You must be sure that you view yourself when you think about what you do, partly from the perspective of the audience and also from the perspective of an imaginary third party so that you can see the interaction and dynamic between you and the spectators clearly. If you are not used to this, then it will take you by surprise. Seeing everything about yourself, your looks, your dress, your manner and body language, the effects you perform, all from the perspective of how they actually come across rather than how they feel to you, is vital as a performer. A performer who cannot view or criticize himself from these external perspectives probably has no business performing professionally. As I have said, I don't believe that there are any shortcuts for arriving at a vision of how your magic must be. Indeed, it would make no sense for there to be one, for the vision will change as you grow, expanding and developing your ideas. But I think it to be the case that having some idea of what you believe magic to be about is important at any stage. This book is about what I have currently decided magic means to me, which I must treat as if it were absolutely what magic is. But along the way, I must remind you that these things are merely my opinion, and far from fact. For, as we have discussed, magic is not inherently anything. So if you do not agree with my vision, I hope that means that you have formed one for yourself. Derren Brown, Absolute Magic, 2001.